In this video, we'll show how to install the Gaming Shop bullet buttons on a PS4 controller. The first step is to remove the 4 screws at the back of the controller. You can use a hand screwdriver or a power screwdriver, it's your choice. Set those screws aside in a safe place so they don't get lost. Once the screws are removed, the 2 halves will pop apart. Just grab both sides of it right at the seam and then pull. It should pop apart on both sides. But before you completely separate it, make sure you pull the ribbon cable out from the circuit board. This is very important. Don't yank it. Be careful pulling it with your fingers. The next step is to remove the battery. Lift the battery out and then pull by the connector, not by the wires. The battery mount is held in place by 1 screw. Unscrew that silver screw and then lift the battery mount away from the circuit board. The circuit board has a ribbon cable that needs to be removed. Tweezers work great to gently pull this out of its connector. From here you can pull the 2 halves apart and set it aside. The buttons are underneath a rubber membrane. You just pull that rubber membrane out and now you can access the buttons. Push from the bottom and lift them out of their sockets. You should have 4 open sockets when you're done. Now we're ready to install the Gaming Shop bullet buttons. Open the package and spread out the buttons. Each bullet button has a unique set of pins that line up with the controller. Make sure you get them in the right location, and when you're done they should all sit flat, just like this. Reinstall the membrane by just pushing it on top of the new bullet buttons. All it takes is a little bit of force in each corner to put it in place. Now we reverse and bring the 2 halves back together. But in doing this, you have to make sure that you get the ribbon cable through the proper slot, as shown here. It'll pop through and should come up just above the circuit board. Now use the tweezers to put that connector back in place. Now we need to reinstall the battery mount. Put it in its location, it should fall into place, and then use the silver screw to tighten it into its position. Next, install the battery, first by putting the connector in its proper orientation, and then put the battery in place, making sure not to pinch the wires. The back shell is now installed first by connecting that ribbon cable to the circuit board, and then bringing that shell on top of the front section and snapping it back in place. The final step is to reinstall the 4 screws, 1 at each corner of the back of the controller. There's 4 screws to install. Make sure you get all 4 in place and don't force it. If you feel the screw is slightly off, just back it off and put it in again. After you're done, check the bullet buttons, make sure they're all working properly. Congratulations, you successfully installed the Gaming Shop bullet buttons on your PS4 controller.